These animals, these creatures that we find really beautiful, they seem to be, similar to our memories and our creative process. When I was a child, I was really interested in reading, and I grew up in a house that was built by my grandfather and my uncles. So building things with my hands and telling stories were probably the two things that I appreciated the most. And when I was in college, I took one art class, and it seemed to be a combination of the two. How to tell stories visually and working with your hands, building something. Well, creativity, honesty, making something with raw materials. I'm really kind of impressed with people who can transform things, whether they're carpenters, poets, storytellers, novelists, visual artists, any kind of creativity. I make paintings, I make drawings, I make sculpture, and I've done several projects at the Children's Museum and several projects in Tijuana that were public art projects. If I couldn't make art, I would probably do a lot more walking. Because as an artist, you spend a lot of time in your own studio working alone. And in a way, working in your studio and making art is like going for a walk through your own kind of creative process and memory. So I think I'd do a lot more walking, a lot more reading, and maybe try to write poetry again. I had done a project with the Children's Museum that began in early 1994. The museum was doing its first original programming in the new space downtown, not this building, the previous building. And the first show that they invented themselves was called the Box Show. And they invited me to make a proposal, and my proposal was to basically make a canvas tent and have a hose pouring rain on it to kind of simulate rain when you're camping or outside. And so that was a real exciting project that turned into the first rain house, which was a house inside the museum. And then when the new museum opened, I think that was spring of 2008, I was invited again to recreate the rain house. And for me, it was just a tremendous opportunity. It's a beautiful space, great staff. I like doing this kind of work where your audience is children and families. So for me, it's just a perfect complement to what I do in my own studio when I paint for myself. Well, the rain house started off as a tent. And then when the museum director, Bob Sane, and the curatorial committee liked the project, and they asked me to refine the design. The refined design eventually became a house, and basically a small-scale house inside the previous Children's Museum. And the idea behind the rain house was to create a contemplative space that kids could be inside of. You would hear the sound of rain, which was basically water coming from the ceiling. And it was meant to evoke those times as a child when I was growing up, where you'd be lying in your bed at night and you'd hear the rain hitting on the roof. Or if you had a rainy day, you were trapped inside the house, and you'd take chairs and tables and bed sheets and just turn them into boats and castles and fortresses, and just transform what was in your house into something that was really playful. So the house and rain just kind of evoked, for me, creativity, contemplation, and transforming things, because you had a day at home where you could play. Well, part of the original conception of the rain house was to have two rain houses, actually, one in Tijuana, one in San Diego, and to exchange creative work made by children from one house to the other. So artwork from Tijuana would come to San Diego, artwork from children working in the Children's Museum in San Diego would go to Tijuana. And this house was designed to be, in a way, a small family home, also to evoke a bird cage and also a bird's nest. It's a combination of house, birdhouse, and bird's nest. And I think the bird is just a kind of metaphor for, you know, these animals, these creatures that we find really beautiful. They seem to be totally free. You know, they seem to be, you know, similar to, you know, our memories and our creative process. Just kind of a sense of creating images and memories, and, you know, in a way similar to the freedom that individuals have when they're creative and they speak. I was fortunate in that I just had to make a design, and it was built by museum staff. And one of the great things about working at the Children's Museum is working with the staff here. And they're always really supportive. They always come up with the most creative, most practical solutions. So I basically did a design, you know, planned the space. I knew where the house was going to be situated. So it's really geared to fit in a kind of cozy but open way in this particular space. If you're in the house and you look at the front door, which has a large keyhole cut into it, there's an age of children, which is like, I don't know, between 5, 6, or 7. And they come through the keyhole and they think it's their house. It seems child-sized. They just see it as an extension of themselves. And so that's an important, playful, you know, possibility that the Rain House has. But mostly, I think the house for the audience is a place that is playful, it's colorful, it's evocative, it suggests security and openness. And the sound of the rain, I think, just promotes, you know, memory and contemplating things.